Welcome to A Toast with our host. Today we have Naya, who is hosting the Tokos Mama and Me retreat in April 2025 in Pavilion, New York. Naya is an intuitive guide, a creative visionary, working with somatic practices to empower others to alchemize pain into purpose, which is just such a beautiful sentiment. I loved reading that in your host bio too. I'm so excited to have you here with us.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much, Ryan, for holding the space.
Of course. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and just your path to hosting this retreat?
Yes. So where do I start? I am a mom myself. My son is almost 2 in February, which is wild. And I recently sort of left the corporate space, but was primarily working in sort of human resources, employee experience, community events. So very much my background is sort of bringing folks together in community and sort of figuring out how we build alongside each other. And my journey to this retreat, I want to say started, it was really kind of a dream during pregnancy that was kind of twofold. I love to travel, so that's part of how I got into hosting like corporate offsites and retreats, and why that sort of was something I pivoted into career wise. But I also am just very deeply committed to wellness. I want to say probably over the last like almost 10 years. And so when I was pregnant, sort of what I kept hearing, or what sort of people messages that folks kept bringing to me were, one, you're not going to be able to travel once you have your child, and two, your entire life is going to revolve around them. You're not going to have as much space and time for your wants, your needs, your desires. And that just did not sit right with me. I was just like, that feels very untrue. And I don't feel like that has to be sort of a collective experience for all mothers, for all parents. And so throughout pregnancy, I was like, how can I think about how to make this more of a reality for myself? But in typical sort of community builder fashion, I was like, how can I make this more of a reality for other moms who are probably also hearing the same messaging? And so I started sort of thinking about it over like the last year or so. And once I sort of left corporate a couple of months ago, I was like, okay, this is actually something I'm going to dedicate time to. How can I sort of create this village of moms who just want to support each other, who want to support our children, who want to model what wellness and self-care looks like, who want to have a community of other people who understand how valuable and important this is, so that you don't sort of feel ostracized or alone or weird for prioritizing this. And that was just sort of how it all came together. So it's been just amazing to be able to bring this to fruition, and I'm excited to gather all of these moms and their little ones soon.
I love it. And I love hearing, even in building Retreat V, it's one of the coolest parts to me is learning about these retreats that are so unique too. And even bringing your child with you on a retreat. I've never heard of that. I think that's so special and like what a unique, special experience that is. So could you tell us a little bit more about what this retreat will be like and what people can look forward to?
Yes. So like you said, this is a retreat where moms can bring their little ones. I think that was also incredibly important to me. I sort of debated, like, do I just want this to be a moms only space? Do I want moms to bring their little ones? And I think it's hugely important to be able to model self-care for your child, for them to see what it looks like for you to practice wellness and to embody those practices. But to also be able to learn how to do wellness alongside your child. Like once you leave this retreat space, you're going to be back amongst your family. You're going to have your child with you. And so I didn't want it to sort of feel like this thing that is entirely separate from what your day-to-day life is. How can we figure out a way to integrate it? So there's going to be some exclusively designed wellness workshops that are really focused on how you can sort of do this alongside your child and with your family, so that you can go home and sort of continue to embody what you've learned. There's going to be lots of nature immersions. I'm really excited because there's going to be some that are actually going to kind of be guided by your little one. There's going to be some insight into how to do that, because I really kind of want to focus on healing your inner child, and sort of just bringing that energy to the forefront with your child, having them sort of lead you. I think oftentimes when we think about parenting, when we think about being a mother, there is this concept that we are guiding our children, and we absolutely are, but we're also here to learn from them. They have so much insight and information to give us to help us sort of remember who we are innately. And so I want to tap into that as well so that moms can sort of figure out how to lean into that more and really empower their children to be their best selves starting from a young age. We're also going to have like family style meals so that we can all sort of get together, reflect on the day, and just really there'll be a good amount, a good chunk of independent time as well too, because I also think like for moms, we all also kind of need a little bit of a break. And so that is definitely going to be built into the schedule. We'll actually have on-site childcare as well. So there'll
Okay.
be this balance of having sort of like independent time that you can spend with your child, you can kind of spend with other moms, go out and explore the space. We'll have a chunk of time, probably about 20% of that time will be spent really with the other moms in community. So we'll be journaling together, we'll be reflecting together, engaging in wellness practices together. And then 30% of that time is kind of going to be with your little one, sort of going through these different workshops, art, storytelling, play. So it's a little bit of everything, but we'll make sure that you have the support with the community that's there, with the childcare provided, with meals, with snacks, so that you can sort of just come as you are and sort of take as much as you can from the space, and pour into yourself, into your child, and into community.
I just love that. I don't have any children, but I'm like, this just sounds like such a special experience. And I love the thoughtfulness of even having the childcare. So there is time to connect with your child, also connect with other moms, also connect with yourself, and kind of have that like multi-level connection happening and really have that reset. And even the thoughtfulness around you're going to go back to your life. And I think that's a big thing that comes up in retreats is, okay, I had this really great experience. And sometimes it's like I go back into the world and it's like I'm just back into the world because of that integration piece isn't there. So it's almost like integrating during the retreat because it's like your child's here. This is your real life. This is your real experience. And I think also just the mindset shift around there's so much to learn from children. And like, I think I could imagine that you see so much of yourself in your children, of course, that it's almost healing on another level because it's like your inner child is so visible in their current young
Yes.
child self.
Exactly. It's really it's to me it's one of the greatest mirrors that I've ever had.
I can imagine.
And I think so much about how harsh we can be with ourselves, especially I know when I first was becoming a mom, I was heavily judging myself on like what I'm doing and how I'm sort of doing this. And I think inevitably mothering is intergenerational. So we are very much sort of our own version of mothering, our own version of parenting is very much impacted and influenced by the parents that we have, by the parents that we've seen around us. And so I know there was sort of this wanting to live up to the great parts of what I saw in my mom, maybe wanting to challenge some things that I wanted to do differently. And I was judging myself so much on like, I need to get this right. I need to do this immediately. Like, I need to be the best mom ever from the beginning. And as my son has grown and he's sort of developing language and he's playing more and just seeing how he interacts with the world and his curiosity and his openness, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Like, that's me. Like, that's how, and that's all of us really is just even like, again, he can have a tantrum and sort of like just let it go. He falls and he gets back up immediately and just goes about his day. The level of presence that he has and the openness that he has to the world and willingness to sort of like make mistakes and just sort of go with the flow is just a constant reminder. I learn from him every single day of like, wow, I can actually do the same thing. Like, we all start off this way, and who's to say that we can't sort of return to that? And so I'm excited to kind of share in that experience and allow and make it more possible for other moms to sort of see that reflection in their own child as well and give themselves the grace to do the same.
I just love that. And I think so much of like even my own journey in this last year has been around like my own inner child because I think there's so much like even how you mentioned it's like the feeling of the feelings or the getting back up when they fell or I always think about like just the sense of wonder and awe and play and like silliness and lightness that like children have that can so inspire. I mean, it's why also, you know, you are with kids and suddenly you're on the ground playing with them too. And it's like, when's the last time you did that? When's the last
Yeah.
time you were drawing and not worrying about what it looked like because it was just the activity that you were doing with them. Like, I think there's so much that comes from like tapping back into that sense of like Anything is possible, and it is fun to just have fun, and you can feel your feelings. We don't have to think so hard about being, we can just be.
Yes, exactly. And that's the emphasis is like, I want you to just be in this space, not do too much, but just enjoy being.
So special. And are you asking any of the moms when they kind of come as far as like setting an intention for this retreat? And I know we've kind of alluded to it, but is there anything specifically when you think about that you're asking them to kind of question or sit with or really like come with an intention of?
Yeah. I think, as I said, mothering is intergenerational. And so I really want folks to sort of reflect on what they've seen thus far, what you've experienced in terms of the mothering that you received. And it doesn't directly have to be from your own mother. I know that some folks, maybe that isn't the relationship that you have with your mom, but it could have been like an aunt or a grandmother or just like a close family friend or mentor. Like, where have you experienced that? And in what ways has that healed you? In what ways are you maybe challenging some of those notions that you have around it? And so I really want to give us time, and we'll do some work around sort of healing like mother wounds during the retreat as well. And so I'd really love for folks to come sort of prepared to reflect and think about that. But the intention is really just, again, to sort of be in the space, give yourself grace, be curious, lean in, and just be present in community with your child, with yourself. That's really ultimately all I can ask for. And just giving ourselves grace. Like, I think the greatest thing I ever learned about during pregnancy was the concept of matrescence. And for those who don't know, it's actually a term that was coined in the 70s, but no one seems to really use it.
I've never
Uh,
heard it. I'm excited.
Yes, and it's basically it's the physical, hormonal, social, emotional, mental transition to becoming a mother. And it's sort of this concept of like a maternal adolescence, that it's an older version of puberty. So when you go through puberty and you have all these hormonal changes and you're kind of moody and you're confused and other folks don't necessarily know how to interact with you and you don't know how to interact with the world, and you're feeling uncomfortable in your body and there's new emotions that are surfacing for you and you're not quite sure what to do with them and where to place them. The same thing happens when you become a mom. It's this new version of adolescence and you're sort of going through puberty all over again. And when I discovered that word, I think it's allowed me to give myself so much grace throughout the journey, the early stages of becoming a mom, because it is, you're forming a new identity. And that's actually why the retreat is called Tokos. It means birth. And this concept that you are sort of birthing a new version of yourself. Like, you've birthed this human being, but you are sort of going through a rebirth and a reimagining of self as well. And so I want moms to kind of just be aware of that as they're coming to the retreat, that this is a safe space to sort of be honest about what all of those feelings have been, to not hide them or suppress them or feel like you're not allowed to experience and feel that. But that, as beautiful as motherhood is, it also is challenging. It's new. And we've kind of been doing this obviously for centuries, for millennia as a collective, but it is still a new and individual and unique experience for everyone. And so I just want moms to come in prepared to honor that, to honor where you're at, to honor where you're at with your child, and to not feel like you have to sort of fit into this box of what it looks like to be a mom or what your child is supposed to act like in the space. Like, I promise the schedule is, children are flexible and they're going to do what they want to do, and so that is accounted for, and sort of how the programming is developed is, I really, really, truly, and genuinely just want people to come as they are.
That's incredible. I mean, I just think too, even alluding to what we were talking about before this, it's just like this idea of showing up with vulnerability and like
Yeah.
embracing that as part of our journeys, whether that's entrepreneurship, motherhood, all the like any different changes we're going through. And I think especially with motherhood, there can be so much you think it's supposed to look a certain way or sound a certain way. And we can put so much pressure on ourselves, no matter what you're going through in life, of, well, people expect me to talk about this in a certain way because this is how it's always been talked about. So I don't want to break the mold, but when we keep things in, we make them so heavier or they take up so much space or we think we're alone. But then the minute we kind of bring the wall down and share a little bit more vulnerably, which can be scary to be vulnerable, but there's so much beauty on the other side of that fear. And that beauty is in realizing it's not as unique in a very comforting sense that there's community to be found in this feeling. And people have been there before, people will be there again, like, and just having to lean on people and also just not feel so alone in that feeling, something about that just makes it so much, it's like, okay, I can take a deep breath. I'm going to get through this. This feeling is not forever. And I'm not a bad person for feeling this feeling. Like, this is just part of the human experience. And I'm in a new chapter right now. So I love that.
Exactly. I resonate with that so deeply. I always love to say that we're all unique, but we're not that special. In
I
the
love
sense
that.
that like it's a unique experience, but you're very rarely, if ever, alone in what it is that you're going through and what you're feeling in this lifetime. And so I think that's why the concept of bringing this retreat to fruition was so important and is so important to me, is because I've kind of been fortunate enough that I've gotten introduced to some of these concepts and I've been committed to my wellness for years, and just even showing up vulnerably is something I'm still sort of working through, but it's becoming easier for me. And so I want to be able to kind of share in this experience and make this a new norm. Like, we don't have to go
Yeah.
through this alone, or we don't have to sort of surface when everything is great. And that's why this retreat is even focused on moms that have children ages 18 months to 3 years, because oftentimes when you also see mama and me sort of events taking place, it's when your child is like school age and a little bit easier to sort of like keep in check and keep in line and have them sort of follow social norms. And I want this to be a space where it's like, no, this is actually a great space to learn from your child while they're not sort of being overly socialized yet. But also, this is a space that oftentimes is neglected. There isn't as much happening for moms here. And so oftentimes what we experience during those first sort of 3 years can make you feel really alone, or like you're sort of waiting until they get to this other point. And I don't want it to feel like a waiting game where you have to wait to get to this point of parenting where it can be fun, where it can be exciting, where you can learn, where you can be curious. It's like you can start right now. You can start in these early stages, regardless of sort of whether or not they're able to follow a linear structure or not, because it's actually more fun when things aren't so linear.
Oh, I just love that. And when you think about how you want these mamas to be feeling when they're leaving the retreat, they're heading back home, what comes to mind? Like, what do you want them to be feeling or embodying as they head back?
Yeah, I want them immediately. The word that comes to mind is like refreshed for me.
Mm.
I want them to feel that they've been able to have ample time to pour into themselves and be poured into. I really want them to feel seen and heard and valued. I think that's hugely important to me, because again, I think it can be such a lonely experience, or even if you sort of are co-parenting and you have sort of the dad that's there with you, or another parent that's there with you, it's still a different experience than being sort of in this mothering role, especially if you've birthed this child. It's different. What your mom may remember or your parents may remember from your experience of being a child to what you're doing now, they may see you and understand and give advice, but they still may not understand everything it is that you're going through in the present moment. And so I really want it to be a space where they feel seen, where they feel heard, where you know that you have value, and that they walk away being able to give themselves grace, that there is this understanding that there is no perfect way to be a mother. There's a way to show up for you and your child. And whatever that looks like for you, I want them to feel empowered to start to practice that at the retreat, and then have the tools and the resources and a community that's going to continue to sort of push you and cheer you on to continue integrating that into your daily life.
I just love this. I think it's incredibly special. I can hear the passion in your voice when you share about this, and the thoughtfulness just radiates from every aspect of this retreat. So I'm so excited to have this on Retreat V. I'm so excited to have you on A Toast with Our Hosts, and I'm so excited to share this episode out with everybody. If you're listening, send to a mom that you love, send to a mom that you know that needs something like this. I think this is incredibly special, and I'm so excited to be sharing this.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Ryan. Again, like, I've been so inspired by seeing your journey. It's part of what allowed me to sort of bring this to fruition. So again, thank you so much for all that you do, and for creating Retreat Me and for creating this space on A Toast with Our Host. I'm really excited and grateful to be here.
Oh, thank you so much.